Hello, gorgeous friends and beautiful people. It is Kathryn Massell, 5D visionary. Whoa, elevated consciousness coach. Got a little bit of a 70s Farrah Fawcett wave happening here. Hello, everyone. This is episode 4 of All Things Ascension. I'm gonna wait till a few people jump on here. Say hello. Let me know you're here. Again, this is episode 4 of All Things Ascension. And today we are talking about, on this 29th day of December, just before we flip the calendar page and move into January and into 2021. It's a wonderful time to talk about false timelines and the DNA, and to collapse the 2020 timeline. So in my group, I did invite you earlier with a prompt to bring a few things today. I'm covered in dog hair. That's just my life. Hi, Kathryn. Hi, Ann. You want to have water for today. This is going to be a purification. So we are not only in the discussion, are you going to kind of burn through some programming in your cellular memory that keeps you from knowing what we're talking about here, but we're also going to purify the 2020 timeline and activate the 2021 timeline. And this is going to be, hello there. Hi, Tim. Hi, Ascension to Love. What a great name. What a great handle. We are going to be revving up our metabolisms a little bit as we do this. And because we're coming together with a collective group intention here, we're going to really power through this purification by amplifying all of our energy here. So all of our individual efforts are doubled, tripled, quadrupled, etc. by how many people are joining. So this is true whether you're watching this live. This is true whether you're watching the replay. If you are watching this replay later on, then I'm talking to you in the future, and I'm inviting you to maybe watch this with people you care about. People who resonate with this kind of energy. It's great to do this as a group. Also known as Alice. Thank you, Alice. Lovely to meet you. Hi, Nalini. Hi, David. All my friends, all my favorite peeps are here. So I want to go ahead and find myself. Find myself, isn't that a theme worthy of your attention? I need to find myself in my Facebook group so that I can see your comments. And there I am. Okay, great. Angela, hello. Vudri, hi. Oh, I'm excited. I'm so excited you're all here. I can't see all the comments in real time, but hopefully I will be able to. I'm going to try. So this is really going to be an exciting discussion. It's going to be engaging, enlivening, enlightening. It's going to bring perhaps some new information to light for you. And when I say new information, it's not new to you on a cellular level, but it may be new to you on a 3D level. And so, like anything, I always have the disclaimer when I do my discussions that you are an adult. We're all adults. Take what resonates with you and leave the rest, okay? You may find that, some of this information resonates with you strongly and it speaks to where you're at right now. You may find that some of this information has been something that maybe unconsciously you've been kind of mulling over, and now we're going to bring some conscious awareness to it. Just remembering, not new, exactly. Hi, Barbie. So take what resonates with you and leave the rest. That's always my invitation for you. Maybe a week from now, you'll want to come back to this and be like, what was she saying about that? Okay, now I know what that means. Or maybe you won't. That's fine too. But when we do this kind of event in a group, we're going to have a large spectrum of beliefs. We're going to have a large spectrum of experience here. We've got people who are newbies to their spiritual journey of advancement, and we have people who are, well-heeled and very seasoned seekers on their individual spiritual journey. So there's room for all of those expressions here when I do these talks and activations. So let's start with some simple stuff, shall we? Get your water. If you don't have some already, there's a lot of you joining here now. Before I really get into the meat and potatoes here, I invite you to get a big glass of water for reasons I previously mentioned. We're going to be working with a lot of fiery purification energy here, so it's going to rev up your metabolism. You're going to be thirsty. So get a giant glass of water, okay? Drink water throughout the day. After this, if you're watching live or the replay, make sure that you have plenty of hydrating opportunities for yourself throughout the day or before you go to bed, because I'm aware some of you are watching and it's late where you are. Bring your intentions forth. What is it that you want to individually collapse for? Hi, Nicole. Hi, Galia. What is it that you individually want to collapse as part of the 2020 timeline of your personal experience? And what is it that you would like to see collapse for the planetary collective, and that you don't want to see, hitching a ride into 2021? The way I'm going to craft the statements for some of I've already prepared for our timeline collapsing segment of this talk, which will be at the end of this talk here. They're duo in nature, meaning the way I have crafted these statements, they also involve the activation of the energy that we wish to have. So I know it's late for you there in Austria. So when you are crafting a statement for yourself, and feel free to add it here in the comments, because if you're watching here live, I will include this. So I'll have to scroll through at the end and make sure I get all the comments in there. And if I miss one, feel free to add it again when we're doing the actual activation of the collapsing timeline. But if there's something you would like to collapse, something you would like to activate for 2021, please put it in here, okay? And I will make my best effort to include that, although I already have some crafted statements that I prepared for today. And because we're working with a large group, they're very general in nature, but they have the highest and best timeline for those of you watching individually and for the planetary collective in mind, okay? So, first off, what are false timelines? What are false timelines? What a great question. False timelines are, well, first of all, let's talk about a timeline, because that might help. Some of you who are coming to this with fresh ears, let's talk about what a timeline is. A timeline is a conveyance of energy, okay? It's a vehicle of energy. And the way our linear minds, the way our linear thinking structures the movement of time is to think of things happening on a horizontal continuum, okay? One event leads to the next event, leads to the next event, and how we mark our experience of time is, let's just say, the space between those events, because we're identifying ourselves or creating an identity or personal reality for ourselves in between the events and experiences of our life, which are marked by clock time, which we happen to be kind of addicted to here in 3D, but this is changing, this is shifting. And many of you, as I'm talking right now, are already resonating with the fact that you have a different experience of time now, don't you? Those of you who have felt, a undeniable shift in your frequency over, especially this past year, but maybe over the past couple of years, maybe over the past couple of months, you may be recognizing, and maybe not consciously at first, but now that I'm saying this, you're having a recognition that you have a different experience of time. That sometimes it feels like time really speeds up. Sometimes it feels like time is slowed down. What's really fun is that you can control that and learn how to manipulate that. That's one of the things that I teach in Timelines Expanded, which I'll talk about in a minute, because there's only 3 days left to get in on the early bird pricing on that course, because it expires on Friday. You can join this course at any time, but the early bird price expires for Timelines Expanded Masterclass, which is a 12-week program, in 3 days, Friday at 5 p.m. Pacific. I'll talk about that more in a second. So what a timeline is this conveyance of these events and experiences, okay? And depending on the choices that we make through our thought forms, our beliefs, our deeds, our efforts, our behaviors, our actions, our attitudes even, our opinions. We're always making a choice about which timeline we want to fund. And the thing that funds a timeline, meaning a timeline doesn't exist without humans funding it with their energy. And this is an important thing to remember when I start talking about false timelines, okay? Timelines can only exist to the degree that we are funding them with our own energy, with our electromagnetic force of being, in other words, okay? So in each moment, think about it this way, we have the opportunity to fund any kind of timeline that we wish. And any kind of timeline that we wish can be created by simply thinking about an alternate reality than what we're experiencing in the moment. Or we can continue along the same timeline continuum by continuing to think the same thoughts, have the same thought forms, the same belief systems, the same attitudes, the opinions, the behaviors, deeds, and actions that we've always had. This is always and ever our choice, because free will choice is everything here in 3D, okay? Lost my watch too, only use it for running now. Oh, awesome. I just found out my husband bought me an Apple Watch for Christmas, and it's coming soon, and I'm kind of reluctant to wear it because those of you who are in Timelines Expanded with me, you know I talk about, like, get rid of your watch. But I am going to be using it for fitness, so I won't be wearing it all the time, but it's just an interesting thing how I feel differently about wearing timepieces now. So, and I love all of your comments here, collapsing anxiety, and there's some good ones in here about collapsing obstacles. Yes, all of that. Yes, I love it. Thank you. Keep them coming. I will try to get to all of them when we collapse the timeline. So that is the definition of a timeline. Okay, it's a conveyance of energy holding our events, our experiences, and our personal reality that we create around those events and experiences for ourselves. And this can either perpetuate a way of being, or we can decide in any moment based on a different choice, an alternate reality, an alternate timeline based on making a different choice or a different series of decisions. And if we keep making those different choices in different series of decisions based on, let's just say, them being in contrast to who we've been before, you can create an entirely different and alternate reality for yourself. This is how powerful we are as human beings. We have been learned out of this power for thousands of years through, thank you, the mechanism of false timelines. And I will talk about what a false timeline is now, okay? So a false timeline, I'm going to give you a really simplified version of this. A false timeline is any timeline that is not in alignment with our spiritual advancement here in this lifetime. Now, I know when I say that, it sounds pretty lofty, and I'm going to say it again. A false timeline is any timeline that is not in alignment with our spiritual advancement in this lifetime, or any lifetime, really. And yes, at first blush, that sounds like maybe kind of a lofty statement, you know, something that sounds maybe kind of too big. But I want you to think about this then. If you're one of those people, it's like, oh, okay, so that's everything basically. Okay, well, let's back that up for a second. We are in a really, really interesting time because coming off of the timeline of 2020, which based on your perspective, you could say it's a false timeline. There are false timeline mechanisms within the 2020 timeline for sure. But based on your perspective, it may not be an entirely false timeline, because false timelines are here to provide contrast for us, which, by the way, we agreed to when we decided to incarnate and come into this planetary timeline now. We agreed to contrast. We essentially made a contract to play with contrast here, okay? That's an important takeaway. So from your God sovereign self aspect of being, by the way, you made this decision. So think about the highest aspect of you making this decision to come and play with contrast. Why would we do that? Well, there are a lot of different reasons why. We have contracts to clear up, maybe some karmic agreements. Maybe in a previous lifetime, we played with a different level of contrast. And now we want to come back and here and experience the opposite of that, because the universe has a universal law, which is the law of polarity, that everything exists in an equal and opposite form, that your soul signed up for it. Absolutely. Okay. So there are a number of reasons why we might agree from our sovereign self aspect to come and play with contrast. But it is always and ever this common denominator, that it is an agreement also that will play with enough contrast and see enough ways that are polarizing to our divine way of being, which is our true divine contract, our divine blueprint of being, our Christos being, our Christed God self. We came to play with levels of contrast so we could remember our way back to that, okay? And this happens to varying degrees on this planet. You know, some of us are, going through big bouts of suffering as we're remembering. For some of us, it's an easy process. For some of us, it's kind of in a gray area in between, okay? But that's the common denominator. We are remembering our way back to our God self. False timelines do help us do this. False timelines are what I call and refer to many times, and if you followed me for a while, I talk about the gift and the garbage a lot, okay? False timelines in and of themselves are a gift and the garbage, because they're here to show us contrast to our true power and true way of being. And there are mechanisms built within the structures, the architecture of false timelines, which we'll talk about in a minute, that are also here to provide contrast to our true DNA blueprint or way of being, our divine God self expression of who we are, okay? And we're sussing through all these different fields of information, all these layers of contrast to remember our way back to God, which is another way of saying remembering our way back to self, because the God and the self are not separate. We are not separate beings. We are God's selves, incarnate, happening to be playing with contrast here in a human form at the moment. But that's a really temporary snapshot of who we are. It's a microcosmic snapshot of the all that is. And believe it or not, we wanted to come here and play with this because it's kind of fun. But also, this particular planetary timeline is really important because we have work to do. And we were either chosen, selected, or we decided to come here because we had certain gifts to bear to this timeline. And if you're watching this, maybe you're saying, okay, well, I see what you're saying, Kathryn. With the false timelines, it's contrast. So hasn't every timeline on this planet been a false timeline? And so does that make our existence false? Well, don't be so quick to conflate those two things, okay? Because as I mentioned before, we are here to play with contrast. And just because they're false timelines and they're based on a false creation template, which I'll talk about in a second, it was meant to be the contrast to show us anything and everything that is not aligned with our journey of spiritual advancement. Just take that in for a second, okay? It's big when you think about that. But another big part of, let's just say, the gift and the garbage from the debatable false timeline of 2020 is that we had actually two big gifts: transparency and discernment. Those are the biggest gifts in the garbage, in my estimation, from 2020. On an individual level, you may have your own. But discernment and transparency. So you're finding, or we're going to find, that you won't have to look as hard anymore for the contrast. Meaning you don't have to go looking for it anymore, because you've spent thousands of lifetimes on this planet and in other planetary lifetimes and timelines, maybe in a different star system. We can still explore contrast in those other places. It ain't just Earth, folks. We're not the only planet spinning out there, okay? And we've explored this contrast for thousands and thousands of years now. Yes, we had to go looking for it before, because that was part of our task, part of our journey. But we're so well healed, we're so well seasoned as journeyman souls, if you want to call it that, at this point. Especially all of you who are watching here, you wouldn't be guided to this if that wasn't true for you in some way. that you don't need to go looking so hard for the contrast anymore. It finds you quickly now, and you may find that this is definitely true of this year. And this transparency and discernment that has availed itself to us so greatly now allows for you to see the gift in the garbage quickly, and then, depending on your free will choice to do so, work with that energy really quickly and clear it and release it and move on to your next station of awareness. This is what we're here to do, and this is what we're here to help others to do, okay? So false timelines ain't all bad, right? To everything, there's contrast, there's polarity. There's a good side and a bad side, okay? So that's kind of the silver lining of false timelines. But I'm going to talk about why they exist, who creates them, and what are the mechanics behind them. Literally, there is architecture that creates a true divine organic timeline that's aligned with our natural process of ascension. And there are mechanics or instruction sets or architecture that builds a false timeline that keeps us in perpetual consciousness loops of lack and scarcity paradigms in consciousness and power structures that are out of integrity, okay? So anything not aligned with our journey of spiritual advancement in this lifetime is a false timeline. I know that sounds lofty, but let me ask you this, okay? What do you think the end game of this material existence is here on planet Earth? You know, maybe before, when you were younger, maybe a year ago, maybe 10 years ago, maybe yesterday, maybe you thought, you know, this material existence is about attaining stuff or status or fame or measuring yourself by some degree of success, you know, meted out by something you didn't agree in creating, you know, meaning you feel validated or worthy in someone else's eyes only through an external source of validation, okay? Maybe you thought that, you know, external validation by another person or group has told you who you are, and maybe you thought, as maybe a glimmer of what's possible here or what this material plane is about, that was the end game here. Absolutely not. No, you know, the journey of this plane has always been about a further journey inward, not a further journey outward, meaning external validation, attaining things that resonate on a superficial level, status, fame, things like that. Success, you know, and success largely gets measured by other people in the old paradigm of how we looked at success. All of that is changing. You know, progress was seen in the eyes of like, how much you producing? What's your output, right? All that shit is going away, thank God, because it was so false, so phony. And sadly, a lot of people, and still on this planet, although people are starting to wake up to it, that is not what this is about. And 2020 has taught us that in a great way, where a lot of the things that, you know, allowed us to have that stability or put us on the path of gearing towards further levels of success, those things fell away in 2020. And I know that people had painful collateral damage experiences from this, but it's not, in the bigger theme of things, a bad thing necessarily. Because we are moving towards the God choice on this planet. And that's what is the highest good of all, with the least amount of resistance for all involved. I'll talk more about that in a second. But this plane has always been about a further journey inward, and everything about this physical existence is a play and contrast to that journey inward. So we can use these external lessons, because that's what they are, these external lessons in contrast and polarity, to find our way back to God, to find our way back inward. Because the journey is always about, and has always and ever been about, the journey further inward. And it's through the contrast of these external lessons of polarity that we're going to find that, okay? So false timelines help us to institute that as well. But false timelines do something that I mentioned very briefly, in that they are creating situations, structures, belief systems, attitudes, opinions, behaviors, thought forms, etc., that are completely out of alignment with the original integrity of who we are as God, sovereign self beings. And we are anointing ourselves in new light, new frequencies that are going to help us remember who we are as sovereign God self beings, okay? And false timelines, if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't necessarily have found our way back to this or had the gift in the garbage of being able to have the powerful journey inward that we're all having. No one is exempt, right? I think it is learning how to be relaxed with your soul journey. And we are going to become more relaxed with it. Because it's just going to come, you know, one healing on the heels of another healing and another breakthrough and another upgrade and another frequency shift that is elevated. This momentum is building now so that it becomes our new normal. And isn't that how we become relaxed, right? Because we settle into a kind of familiarity with it. And at first it feels like big jolts and, you know, massive breakdowns, but breakdowns lead to breakthroughs when we're talking about spiritual ascension. Okay. So what else did I want to say about that? I have some notes here. So a lot of darkness and structures that have held dark energy in place, they're actively dissolving now. And that includes a lot of false timelines, and that includes a lot of the machinery that is involved with false timelines. So a false timeline is similar to the timeline that I gave the definition of. It's a conveyance of energy, but it is not in alignment with the integrity of our divine soul blueprint for being, our God self, God's sovereign self aspect of being. There are two mechanics, two kind of levels of architecture for building creation templates of being. Base 12 mechanics. Base 12 is, first of all, it's a sacred number. And sacred geometry is built off of base 12 mechanics, the true sacred geometry, okay? And it is this sacred geometry that builds the creation template that is in alignment with our true divinity, our God self aspect of being, that aligns us with constantly elevating stations of awareness. That is the process of ascension, because ascension is not a singular event. Ascension is constantly working the steps of elevating your stations of consciousness, okay? It doesn't end. And in that brings us to the next thing about base 12 mechanics. It is an infinite source grid of energy, meaning it is an inexhaustible supply of energy. It is not finite. It is infinite. It is eternal. And when we are working with anything created from base 12 mechanics and true sacred geometry, we are working with God choice principles. Again, that which is aligned with the highest and best good for you, the highest and best good of all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved. It benefits the most, the surplus of humanity rather than the few. It aligns us with moving into our ever increasing higher self avatars of being. It aligns us with moving towards light body status, which is aligned with our natural DNA blueprint of being. We are not meant to shed this body like a shell. We're meant to physically ascend with it. And that's what this timeline is all about on planet Earth at this time. Moving into the crystalline pre-silicate matrix, if you want to call it, but our light body status. We're meant to ascend into that and take the body with us. That's what physical ascension means, okay? That's base 12 mechanics. Base 10 mechanics is another template of creation. It is out of integrity with our divine God self being. It is out of integrity with our divine DNA blueprint, our cellular expression for being that is aligned with our God self. Base 10 mechanics is the creation template. It's the architecture that builds false timelines. So it looks like a regular timeline, smells like a regular timeline, sounds like a regular timeline, tastes like a regular timeline, but it's not a regular timeline. It's out of integrity with who we are as our Christed self beings, our Christ consciousness. And it is within this architecture that a lot of things can be built in to keep us from forgetting who we are. Keep us forgetting, not from forgetting. Keep us forgetting who we are. And all of our power, and all of our light, and all of our glory, all of our potentials, all of our psychic abilities, All of our gifts for timeline jumping and astral traveling and remote viewing and out-of-body experiences and lucid dreams and higher self connection and God self connection. There are many mechanisms that are built into this false architecture of false timelines. They can be seals or frequency fences which affect our DNA directly, and they also affect the grids on the planet. Seals and frequency fences work that way because we are constantly signaling to the DNA, to Mother Earth, and Mother Earth through her DNA, if you want to call it that, is constantly signaling to us. It is a symbiotic relationship. We are inextricably intertwined for all time as humans to this planet. So when she ascends, so do we. And when we ascend or shift in frequency, so does she. Okay? So these grid points that are affected by seals and frequency fences, artificial machinery, holographic inserts affecting this planet, they're going to affect our DNA. Okay? And it's very powerful how these work. And I'll talk about who creates them and why in a second. But we have stations of identity. Stations of our identity that are encoded into dormant DNA. And it's only dormant because we've been learned out of using these genetic expressions or these genetic potentials that are coded in our DNA. We are never not our Christed God self as far as our DNA is concerned. But what holographic inserts and the other artificial machinery that are coded as false timelines, what they are designed to do is disrupt that coding, to break down those genetic potentials, to learn us out of or put us in a veil of forgetting of who we really are and what we're really capable of. That's what false machinery built into false timelines does to our DNA. So we have these stations of our identity encoded in dormant DNA. It's only dormant because we're not using it, but this is all coming back online for us now. And this is all ready to be recollected for us. All this information is ready to be recollected, recoded, if you want to call it that, restructured, so that we can make it usable in these bodies that we have now, okay? So these are intact, these codes. It's like they're intact, pure spiritual bodies of our forgotten selves. And they're obscured or distorted by false timelines that are held in the lower frequency hubs of the 3D time matrix. And as we are, as a collective, moving out of these lower hubs of the 3D time matrix, a lot of these structures are naturally dissolving, because what did I say at the beginning here about timelines? Timelines, whether false or pure, can only exist to the degree that we are funding them with our human energy, individually and collectively. And planetary timelines of loss, grief, war, pestilence, violence, lack, sorrow, only exist to the degree that we keep participating in them. That's how powerful we are, okay? So these intact, pure spiritual bodies that I'm talking about of our forgotten selves, these are energetic bodies. They hold our higher spiritual intelligence, a higher emotional intelligence too, because those things go together. If we are emotionally mature, chances are we're spiritually mature. If we're spiritually mature, we're also emotionally mature. Those things go together. So these bodies are holding our intelligence. They are holding our mind matrices that have been veiled for us, which make up our spiritual identity, okay? They are designed to be recalled and reclaimed now during this series of timeline collapses, because we are raising our frequency collectively, because you are raising your frequency individually. You're just naturally opting out of a lot of these false timelines, because it's no longer part of your belief system necessarily, let's just say, to believe in lack, or to believe that you are powerless, or to believe that you don't have a connection to your higher self, or to believe that you can't astral travel, or have a remote viewing experience or out-of-body experience, or tune into the natural DMT in your brain so you can fully activate your pineal gland, okay? All that shit is moving out, pardon my French. And it's moving out, and it's kind of this, give and take, that it's moving out, and these timelines, a lot of them are naturally collapsing, is because we're no longer funding it with our energy, because we've shifted in frequency out of those lack paradigms that held our funding in place for those false timelines. Does that make sense? I want to explain this so you guys get it. 100% agree with that, Kathryn. Emotional maturity is a huge part of being spiritually mature. Yes, absolutely. Hand in hand, right? Give me some hearts if you guys are following me so far. Yes, that's why it's so important to be connected to the true vibrations of soul. Yes. All right, get some hearts. Good. So when we unhook consciously, now think about this. Let me give you some perspective on this. A lot of these false timelines and false machinery that are encoded in part of these false timelines, because they exist together, are naturally falling away because we're elevating in frequency. And this is happening on a continuum, folks. We keep rising up in frequency. And the more we keep our eyes on the prize and do our continued shadow work and stay devoted to our path of raising our frequency, the more and more false timelines will naturally collapse. So this is just happening naturally, okay? Now, when you have a conscious knowledge and recognition of false timelines, and here are those words again, discernment and transparency, because a natural collateral benefit of raising your frequency is that discernment you already have, that transparency you already have that's coming through is only going to amplify when you stay dedicated and devoted to the practice. Yes, because it is an active and participatory practice of elevating your frequency. That discernment and transparency only amplifies. It magnifies. It becomes bigger. All areas of your life, it's like you're shining a big spotlight on all the ways you're still playing with contrast, all the ways you're still exploring polarity, sometimes just for the sake of it, okay? Because we're habituated to it, to be honest. Okay, I hear often we no longer need proof. Self-realization is the proof of an elevated vibration. Self-awareness, self-actualization, right, Crystal? Yeah. So when we consciously recognize false timelines now, we consciously recognize false machinery at work, okay? And that's basically anywhere you're still holding like the belief systems that I'm powerless, or I can't do this, no one's done it before. Or who am I to think this? Or how can I possibly be worthy if this person's doing this and they're so much better than I am? They're so much further along than I am. All that stuff is going away. This is the old mind matrix playing tricks with you. It's treacherous. It's a treacherous mindset. It's meant to be. Because how else would you believe you're swindled out of your own power? How else would you believe you're swindled out of your own divinity if there wasn't treachery at work? Okay? So when we consciously recognize and then unhook from false timelines and this false machinery, we're able to access coding in our DNA for more of our Christos blueprint. More of this dormant DNA, in other words, comes online, meaning it is an active potential, ready for your use in your physical body now, here, not later, not in 10 years from now, now. Okay? Can you tell how excited and geeked out I get with this stuff? This is why I love teaching timelines. This is only one of the things that we talk about in timelines. So when we unhook from false timelines, we're able to access coding for more of our Christos blueprint, our divine human blueprint of DNA, which was always and ever meant to be the only expression of who we are. We're remembering our way back to this. And as we activate more potentials of this by opting out of false timelines, we're only activating and bringing online and enlivening more of our divine Christos DNA blueprint. It's exciting. This is you incarnated in the most exciting timeline. Just think about that. It maybe doesn't feel that way all the time, but I'm always and ever about, when I teach, having you look at the other side of the coin, seeing the bigger picture. Okay, so can you guys get, even just a taste of the breadth and the wide berth of this greater aspect of who you are? Can you feel it in your body? Can you get tingles from this when I'm talking? Do you feel your God self perking up its ears and going, yes, oh, this is music. This is manna for my spirit, right? Okay, it's meant to be. You're meant to be excited about this. It's not meant to be like, oh my God, I have so much more work to do. No, it's meant to be a celebration It is meant to be a quickening of your spirit. Okay? That's my word for 2021, by the way, quickening. So doing this, activating our divine human blueprint of DNA by opting out of false timelines, no longer consenting to participate or fund your energy in false timelines and false machinery. Doing this allows you to become more aware of history timelines as well that have been wiped from your cellular memory. So something that's really exciting, because of my work with timelines and because I go down the rabbit hole of timelines all the time. And I think I mentioned in the last video that I make that, how I suss out this material and make it usable and teachable is that I remote view like a Rolodex of timelines. That's how it feels for me. It feels like a flipping through of those of you who are old enough to remember going to the library and sifting through the card files to find a book. That's how it feels for me when I sift through timelines. It's like going through a Rolodex or a library card file, different things, because I know what I'm looking for now and I'm searching for certain things. And I'm searching for lost history timelines. So things that, because we're in this veil of forgetting and because we've been working with base 10 mechanics and false timelines and false machinery that has kept our DNA blueprint in its divinity from us, in our cellular memory, we have history timelines that have been wiped. So when I teach level 2 of Timelines Expanded, I'm adding another module. So it'll be the 6th module for level 2 timelines. And you can't take that without taking level 1, by the way. I'm going to be talking about mysteries, unlocking mysteries of veiled timelines, which is going to be really interesting. Really, really interesting. So if that interests you, you got to get in Timelines Expanded Masterclass. So when we awaken history timelines also that have been wiped from our cellular memory, we remember who we are collectively. We remember who we are individually as well. And we realize that maybe some of the memories that we have of ourselves in this lifetime or ourselves in other lifetimes, or our planetary collective timeline memory has been tampered with. And yes, it has. Not all of our memories are ours. Some of them are false memories. And some of them are meant to create false flags so that we have triggers and we go back to being in disempowerment. We go back to being disenfranchised from our divine human DNA. Yep. Treacherous. Did I mention the word treacherous? So when we awaken this, we are more in our sovereignty. It increases our autonomy of choice, because when we are in a place of sovereignty, and I know that word gets bandied about quite a bit, but that's really what we're awakening to. That is really what we are remembering our way back towards, is sovereignty. And sovereignty always includes autonomy of choice. Meaning, if you're working with an infinite source grid, you are working with an infinite number of potentials for ways of being. I would say that increases your ability to choose, yes? And coming from a base 10 mechanics series of false timelines that we've allowed ourselves to define our lives and reality by, which, by the way, is a finite source grid. It is an exhaustible energy supply source, and that's why it needs human energy to fund it, okay? Otherwise, these false timelines and false machinery could not exist. We fund it with our own energy. How effed up is that? It's true. This is not meant to disempower you. This is meant to bring you knowledge so that you can have greater autonomy of choice about what timeline you want to be funding, what reality you want to be funding. If we believe that our energetic field cannot be compromised, can it still be compromised? That's a really good point, because your perspective is everything, isn't it? Your perspective is everything. And to really opt out of that, to answer your question, Crystal, I don't know if you watched the video I made a couple of days ago, but I was talking about how you can make yourself vibrationally invisible by elevating your frequency to a certain degree, okay? And this is another collateral benefit of constantly committing to the practice of raising your frequency higher and higher. That means clearing your shadow, clearing your contrast, clearing out ways that you're volunteering or allowing yourself to play with polarity. You're going to keep raising your frequency in that. And when you do that, you are off the radar of certain beings and entities that are out of integrity and want to play with and manipulate and dominate your energy for their own selfish ends and means. You're off their radar. Okay? So that's kind of answering your question, I hope. So when we are awake to more of our sovereignty, this greatly increases our autonomy of choice in our everyday lives, so we can make better, informed God choices. And I'll say it again, the God choice is that which is aligned with your highest and best good, the highest and best good of all. We've been taught that those things are mutually exclusive. They are not. False machinery, false timelines. And that which is aligned with the least resistance for all involved. Okay? I can tag you on that video, Crystal, if you didn't see that. It's a quick one. It's like a 30-minute video. So when you do this, you're making the God choice that aligns you with the highest good of you and the highest good of all, with the least amount of resistance for all involved. You experience naturally more serendipity. You noticeably increase your psychic abilities, and activate latent ones, meaning they're already part of your dormant DNA that just have not been genetically expressed in this lifetime because you've been learned out of it, okay? So these latent ones get activated, like the ability to lucid dream or remote view other timelines and lifetimes, change your relationship with your past self, which you absolutely have the power to do. Hello, Timelines Expanded. I teach you how to do that. You experience spontaneous occurrences of premonition and retrocognition. And retrocognition is what I'm talking about when I say that you have the ability to decode your cellular memory that holds the active, true organic memory of accurate historical timelines. That's retrocognition. So those can be active timelines, or accurate timelines, I should say, that are individual for you, meaning the continuum or life stream of parallel realities that you've occupied or are occupying, because everything is now, or the planetary collective timeline of humanity. Okay? Retrocognition. This is where you remember essentially parts of the holographic record of the past, because the universe is a hologram. So everything is recorded in the hologram. Okay? That means everything can be found. That's how you can remote view. You can remote view the past, present, future, because everything is now. So it just depends on what your intention is, your directive, which way you want to go. But all of it can be viewed because everything is held as a holographic record of the past now. That's a whole other rabbit hole I can take you down in Timelines Expanded, and we do talk about that. And you become more of a deliberate and passionate sculptor of your reality, because life just becomes more fun when you realize how much more power you have. Anytime you feel empowered and you're doing something that you love, isn't it more fun? That's how it feels to work with timelines. That's how it feels to recognize false timelines, false machinery, false flags that are signaling instruction sets to your DNA that are false. That's how good it feels to recognize that and then just say, I don't consent. I don't allow that way of being anymore. I'm going to create my life this way. And you become a much more passionate sculptor of your reality. So this next level of your awakening, and what we're moving into very rapidly now, is really dependent upon what constructs, what timelines also, you're no longer available for. And that's based on what you decide you want to fund or you don't want to fund with your energy. Because again, timelines, whether pure or false, can only and ever exist with our human energetic potential creating momentum behind it. Without our participation, timelines cannot exist. Okay? It was never part of our divine blueprint and evolution into our cosmic true identity of self to stay in the level of awareness that we've been in up till now. We were never, ever, ever meant to stay in this micro-concentrated sphere of reference, which is 3D. It was only and ever meant to be a station of awareness. And we're rapidly moving and shifting out of that frequency, especially the lower hubs of the 3D time matrix, where a lot of the false timelines were created and where they dwell, and where the false machinery gets created and perpetuated within those false timelines. So who's responsible for false timelines? Well, there's been a lot of energy siphoned off this planet through, yes, holographic inserts, frequency fences, seals, implants, parasitic energies and entities, holographic inserts, etc., for thousands and thousands of years. Because there has always been a war, an ongoing war, if you want to call it that, over who has dominion over Earth. And just because there are beings in other star systems, other planets, who have a greater level of intelligence for technology, doesn't mean that they are of a spiritual and emotional maturity, okay? Just remember how I said that those things go together. Well, there are a lot of entities and beings who don't have spiritual or emotional maturity. They may come from star systems that are advanced technologically, but that doesn't necessarily mean, and we can see this on our own planet, can't we? Technology moves faster than we can emotionally grasp it and be mature with it, yes? How many times have we seen that play out time and time again? So there you go, there's proof on our own planet. And so these beings have exhausted their resources in their own star systems, planetary systems, etc. And it behooves them to use our human energetic potential and siphon it off. And it's not a one-to-one thing. If you have an energetic attachment, that's something different. I'm talking about the grid points on this earth being used as siphoning points or funneling points to move energy on this planet, off planet, okay? And that's been happening for thousands of years. Let this be part of your awakening process. Don't let it scare you. It's just what it is, okay? But we can decide to opt out of it. That's what this conversation is about. That's what this teaching of empowerment that I'm sharing with you is really about, okay? And it also behooves them to keep us in a place where, I hate to use the word prison planet because that sounds so permanent. It's not. But it does make us, in a way, mentally enslaved to an agenda we had no power or say-so in setting up. But now we have power because we're awakening to our true potential. Now we have say-so because we see this contrast that we've been playing with and we're like, hell no, no. And so if we keep consenting, it keeps happening. If we keep allowing and kind of going la, 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 it keeps happening, okay? But we don't have to consent or allow. And we can collapse those potentials that are taking us away from our God self, divine expression of who we are. And we can collapse those timelines, we can collapse those potentials and activate new ones. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. So I want to know if any of you had questions before we move into the collapsing timeline. I know I've been talking for about an hour, but we're going to spend about the next 20 to 25 minutes collapsing the 2020 timeline, maybe half hour. So if you need to jump off, that's fine. This replay is going to be on my YouTube channel. Excuse me. It will also be in this group, Global Acceleration of Ascension. Okay. Very quickly, before we move into the collapsing the 2020 timeline, and I will look for your questions if you have any and try to answer them. Get some water. You're going to want to have a big sip of water. This has already revved up your body a little bit just listening to this. That's okay. If you're feeling warm or you're feeling like you're zinging really high, you're buzzing, that's normal. It's okay. And if you have statements that you'd like me to include and you haven't included them already, please put them in here. Hi, Danielle. But I wanted to, while we're getting ourselves together here, really quickly tell you that if this kind of information really makes you perk up your ears and gets you excited to learn more, I have a program called Timelines Expanded Masterclass. This is a 12-week, very comprehensive and spiritually advanced series of teachings. A series of masterclasses, essentially, on all things timelines, the nature of timelines, how humans create timelines, false timelines. We talk about ancestral timelines in the DNA. We talk about jumping time. We talk about bending time and how to do it. I don't just talk about it. It's not just academic. You have actual practices as well as discussion of this material. And the practices are really powerful. You have collapsing and activating timeline statements and practices that I share with you. We talk about how to opt out of false timelines, so we go deeper into that in Timelines Expanded. There is also a level 2 for those of you who want to go even more, into spiritual advancement of this topic. We talk about remote viewing. I teach you how to do some remote viewing, and I'm adding another module. It'll be module 6 that I'm going to be adding to level 2, where we're going to be talking about unveiling mysteries of timelines, historical timelines. It's probably going to be a different title. I had a different title for it the other day that was really good. Now I forgot it. But it's going to be Unlocking Mysteries of Veiled Timelines, essentially. So those of you who are really interested in this kind of stuff, you're going to want to join level 2. And if you are really interested, I will offer you a bundle price on levels 1 and 2 if you're interested in that. But the last day to get Timelines Expanded Masterclass for early bird pricing is this Friday, January 1st at 5 p.m. Pacific time, okay? Such amazing, one-of-a-kind courses. Thank you, Dina. Yes, there's really nothing else like it out there, and I say that without ego. And the reason I know is because I've looked for that many, many times. And so I spent a lot of time researching and collating this material and remote viewing timelines to create this course for you. So it really is one of a kind, and that's not a glib statement. All right, so let's do it. So have a big sip of water. The name is Timelines Expanded Masterclass, and I can actually very easily, I can just put the link right in here. And we have a really amazing group. We've got like 65 plus people. We have a Facebook private community that supports this group. And whenever I teach it live, we have a lot of engaged people. Some people have taken this every time I've offered it, actually, because once you sign up for this program, you're in for life. So every time I teach it live, even when I add new material, even when it costs more, you're in it for life. So that's just an extra bonus. So here is the link. And there is 3 payment options. And again, if you're interested in doing level 1 and 2 together as a bundle, just message me and I will send you the link or links for that, because you can do 1 payment or 2. All right, there it is. You guys ready? I know I'm ready to collapse the 2020 timeline. But again, we had gifts in the garbage. We did have the gifts of transparency and discernment and getting to see who we really are, getting to see, and I'll speak personally here, getting to see, who my allies really are and who's folks, blessings and good on them, but they don't align with my life path anymore. And that's okay. I can still wish them well and blessings and all that, but I was able to see, and I am able to see with much more clarity now, those who are on this journey with me and those who aren't, and I can bless them either way. But it's been interesting. And in a lot of ways, it was one of the best years of my life. I know that's not everyone's experience with 2020, but it was definitely mine. And I say that with a lot of gratitude in my heart. Because I met some people that I know I'm going to know for a long time, clients and friends alike. I get to work with an exciting group of people. More and more, I attract my soul family and integrate them into my lives. And that just feels so good. Especially, I felt alone for a long time in my life. And like I was the only one out there thinking these things, feeling these things. And I realized that's not true. And that has been such a blessing. And every day I just say thank you. Every day I just say thank you. And those of you here watching, you know who you are. Sorry, my doggy's going crazy right now. Must be UPS. All right. So, hi Kimberly. So much clarity. Lorianne says, same. Samesies. All right, so You really don't have to do anything here. I'm going to guide this process. So all you really have to do is listen to the sound of my voice. Hey, Heather. Just listen to my voice. I will get you through. We're going to start off creating a very sacred and protected space, because that's how I work. Those of you who are familiar with working with me, you know I don't F around when it comes to that. I'm all about protection. I'm all about support. I'm all about safety. I'm all about working in the highest integrity with the spiritual realms, okay? And when we raise our frequency to that level, pardon my French here, we are unfuckable with, meaning we're off the radar of those who would intervene or interfere or try to thwart our efforts and highest and best potentials here. Yes? Okay. So always create that space for yourself. When you are working with your 12-pointed Merkaba, which we're going to invoke here, you are in the most safe and protected space, because no one can mess with, tamper with, program, manipulate, dominate your 12-pointed Merkaba. Okay? That's for you and you alone. All right. So just go ahead and get yourself comfortable. If you want to lay down here, that's cool. You can do that. You can be sitting. Just make sure you're in a comfortable place. We're probably going to go 20, 25 minutes here. I'm going to have another sip of water. All right. Just get comfy. And I am going to call in 110 hertz. Why 110 hertz? 110 hertz is a pure tone, and it is a wave. It's a pure tone frequency, and it is very powerful. And the reason it's very powerful is because when we are creating a ritualistic space, it amplifies the energy of all the intentional energy that we have, okay? 110 hertz is a frequency that's found in a lot of places where archaeological evidence has shown that rituals have taken place. There are sound instruments where you can measure the frequency of a space, and a lot of ritualistic spaces, like caves even, that were used for ritual, valleys, especially where some of the Americans had, maybe let's just say, contact with otherworldly beings and performed rituals and had sacred spaces. A lot of them resonate at 110 hertz. There's a reason for that, okay? It is a powerful transmitter and amplifier of energy. So it's like we're taking this energy and putting it in Shea Stadium, or we're putting it at Wembley and broadcasting this out, giving it a wide berth and a wide reach, okay? So this is playing in the background. You're not going to hear it. That's okay. You may pick it up unconsciously, but it is playing, okay? And I can give you guys the link for this if you want. Do you want me to share the link for 110 hertz? I'll do it anyway, whether you want it or not. You can just find it on YouTube. Okay? All right. So just go ahead and close your eyes and listen to the sound of my voice. Don't worry, I'll get you there. Take a deep breath in and out. And just feel your body settle. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you do this, feel your body in time, meaning as you connect with the breath on the inhale and exhale, you connect with your body in time. And now just breathe normally. Feel your body relax and connect with your body in space, meaning become aware of where your body is residing next to your phone, your computer, a doorway, a plant, your chair, Become aware of the space that you take up, of what you embody. And just allow a wave of relaxation to initiate from the top of the head down through all the muscles of the head and the scalp, loosening up the muscles of the jaw and the neck and the shoulders, and feel your shoulders just kind of drop a little. Feel this energy come down through the chest and the back, down through the belly and the hips, down through the legs, the knees and the calves and the ankles, and out through the soles of the feet and the tips of the toes, letting any tense, heavy, tight energy go with that. Take a deep breath in and clear that space within you. And call back all fragments, fractionated parts of self, all parts of you that are playing with contrast and polarity in other realities, dimensions, timelines, lifetimes, realms of being. Just call all of those aspects of you back into your now dominant timeline, asking that any carryover potential from these realities you've been exploring come into your now dominant timeline and fund the energy of this work here we are about to do. Activating highest timeline potentials for that which you do desire. And as you call these pieces in, imagine a sphere or halo of 12D crystalline diamond light just above the top of the head, and allow this to wash down through your physical being and all the fields in and around the body. Bringing this down, washing you clean through like a spiritual power wash, and then down and out through the soles of the feet, taking this energy all the way down throughout all the layers of dirt and rock and crystal, taking it all the way deep down into the crystalline core of the earth. Asking Mother Earth to transmute, purify, and clarify all of the energies that are no longer aligned with your highest and best good, no longer serving your highest potential timeline. And saying, I am grounded, I am grounded, I am grounded. And now I want you to breathe in from that sphere or halo of energy above, and from that central crystalline core of energy below, breathing in simultaneously, pulling from above and below, simultaneously as you inhale and then exhale into the heart space. Expand this area. And employing the pranic breath again, breathing in from above and below simultaneously, and activating the heart space again, sending that energy out further and faster. And on this third inhale, using the pranic breath again from above and below simultaneously, as you exhale into the heart, imagine a 12-pointed star, a dodecahedron, forming in the heart space and expanding out past you, out past your house, out past your neighborhood, out past your state, out past the country, out past the planet. Extending this 12-pointed Merkaba out further and faster, as far out as you can possibly imagine. And I want you to call in God Self, 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 God Self. And feel that shift. Whew. Just enjoy this space and revel in the protection and the support that you feel in this space. Revel in this heart expansion. Notice whatever messages, guides, galactic beings of purest integrity are here to assist in this process. Only those aligned with this frequency are welcomed into this space. Only those aligned with this vibration can see, notice, feel this space. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I allow painful memories or experiences of my past to define my reality. I self-deprive of love, support, connection, vitality, well-being, progress, positive feelings about myself, positive influences, soul family integration. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I believe and participate in a lack universe, a scarcity paradigm of being, imbalanced power structures of being, power structures out of integrity with my divine sovereign being, the not enough template of living my entire reality. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I keep believing there can't be many more quantum leaps of growth in these 7 areas of life: physical, emotional, mental, social, financial, environmental, and spiritual. I no longer consent to funding my energy in potential realities where I feel numbness, indifference, powerlessness as a trauma response. Our trauma responses don't have to be ignited by anger or fear or lashing out or even being in pain and suffering. Sometimes our suffering, sometimes our trauma is numbness, indifference, not caring. That's not aligned with our divine blueprint, and it is a trauma response. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I'm not open to clarity and further transparency, where I'm not open to the veil just getting thinner and thinner from here on. Where I've already shifted into a higher frequency, this veil is thinner so I can see with greater transparency that which I no longer align with. I can see with greater clarity that which I no longer consent to. I can see with greater discernment those people, events, situations, beliefs, attitudes, opinions, behaviors that no longer define my reality or align with my desired path going forward, and so it is. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I believe in obstacles, where I can't or won't see the gifts and opportunities available in the contrast to my highest potential for being. I no longer consent to funding my energy in timelines or potential realities where I have to do it alone, where I am alone, where I suffer alone, where I sacrifice safety, vitality, well-being for connection and closeness. I'm going to say that one again. I no longer consent to funding potential realities or timelines where I feel I have to sacrifice safety, vitality, well-being, and health for connection and closeness. And so it is. I no longer consent to potential realities and funding them where I don't have the power, the wherewithal, or the resources to build intentional communities of like-minded souls around me, where I can reintegrate, meet again, remember who my soul family really is. I no longer consent to potential realities and funding timelines where I'm agreeing in mind, heart, or body to play with levels of contrast I've already explored, I've already known. And I fully agree to downloading consciously the lessons from those polarities and contrasts that I continue to play with, so I no longer have to play with them. I no longer consent to funding potential realities and timelines where I don't immediately see the gifts in the garbage from the contrast I'm playing with, so I can then efficiently process my healing and growth in the highest possible timeline for me. So be patient with me. I have to go back and find we are vibrationally ready to receive. I no longer consent to funding potential timelines where I feel I have to keep looking for contrast. I no longer consent to funding timelines and potential realities where I can't be excited or have excitement and anticipation for greater times to come for all on the planet, not just myself. And this is an important one. It may not make sense to you, but that's okay. On a God self level, it will. I no longer consent to actualizing potentials and funding timelines where I'm not uniting all of my suns, where I'm not uniting my entire solar reishi complex and living at the highest level of my divinity. I no longer consent to funding timelines and potentials where I need validation, external bolstering of who I am, external definitions of who I am, external validation of who I am, external confirmation of who I am. I no longer consent to any potential timelines and realities where I believe that disease is there to teach me something, where I have to make myself sick to teach myself something. Just take a deep breath. I think I covered a lot of the poor health and illness stuff. I know a few of you put that in there. I wish it was easier for me to see all these. We did collapse, lack, and scarcity, so I think I hit a lot of what you're talking. Anyi says, collapsing fear of making decisions and moving forward. That's an excellent one. I no longer consent to funding potentials or timelines of reality where I feel fearful of making decisions, where I'm afraid to take quantum leaps forward in my progress, my real, true, organic progress that is aligned with my original divine human path in this lifetime. I think I got a lot of that. We're talking about wealth. I did hit on that. So I want you to take a deep breath in and out. In the name of the collective spirit and the common goal and goals of this group, that we ask that the highest will of the God choice be employed to secure and seal these collapses and these intentions into the 2021 timeline. We ask that the golden rule of not messing with the free will choice of others be employed by asking to employ the principle of the God choice, so that all of these potentials, all of these alternate realities, all of these possible timelines be ignited with the fire of the God choice, be anointed in the light of the God choice, and be sealed in the timeline with the principle of the God choice and unity consciousness fully intact. We ask this from the highest God self aspect of who we are. And we seal this activation, this series of intentions with love, with grace, with faith, with allowing, with trust, with surrender, with knowing, with truth, the higher spiritual truth, the objective truth of the highest and best good of all. And so it is. And as you take a deep breath in here, pull in the energy of your 12-pointed Merkaba. Pull that back into your heart space. And as you take another deep breath in, imagine pulling that halo or sphere of 12D diamond light down through the body, all the way down through the body, through all the layers of the earth and into the crystalline core. saying, I am grounded, I am grounded, I am grounded. And when this feels complete, go ahead and take another deep breath in and open your eyes. And take a big sip of water here. And I invite you to, and you know, just because this was quick doesn't mean it was any less powerful, because we amplified it so much by coming together as a collective with a common good and a common intention, a common denominator for the highest good of all. And also because we worked with 110 hertz, and I forgot to mention that I also programmed my Andara crystal before we began to hold this timeline that we have created intentionally and collectively in perpetuity, so that whenever anyone is ready to fully access the energies, it's contained in a tube torus of energy in their field, so they can just pull it in and access that. Whether it's DNA coding or whether it's a new behavior to employ that allows the DNA coding to express, all of that got programmed into the Merkaba. So we worked with a lot of powerful helpers and tools here. I was aware of some helpers coming in, intergalactic, multidimensional beings helping us work with sound. The Hathors were definitely present, who I work with quite a bit. You know, they got me hip to 110 hertz as well, because they are multidimensional beings that help us to work with sound. And I work with that a lot when I activate and restructure the DNA. So I hope this was helpful for you guys, and I invite you to do your own ceremony, do your own ritual. You can, you know, create the space just like I walked you through in the beginning of this activation here. Create that space so you're working with protection, so you're off the radar of certain beings that are out of integrity with your divine template, who would thwart your best efforts to activate your highest potentials. When you are in a protected and supported space like that, you are vibrationally invisible to those beings. But there is a golden rule, and I mentioned it if some of you didn't fall asleep, because sometimes I put people to sleep when I do these activations. But if you didn't fall asleep, maybe you notice I remarked on the golden rule of timeline healing. And that is that we can never mess with the free will choice of others, okay? That's why we employ the God choice, so that we can have these intentions and put them in place and ask that the universe put them in play. But it's always within the boundaries and the borders of, yes, that's which is aligned with your highest good, but also the highest good of all, and with the least amount of resistance for all involved. And that basically gives it like the kiss of God to have it come to fruition in the highest and best way for all, okay? Which is what unity consciousness is all about. All right, guys, so I'm going to sign off. I want to thank you so much for being here. If I missed one of your comments, I will put this into my meditative practice when I sit with this energy again. If you'd like me to do that for you, I'm happy to do that on your behalf. But you can also create this space for yourself and do your own timeline activation statements. Again, remember the God choice when you do that, the golden rule of timeline healing. If you want to know how to really craft timeline collapsing and timeline activating statements, then you need to be in Unit 3 of Timelines Expanded Masterclass, where I teach you how to do that, and we talk about that very deeply. I have the fondest blessings and well wishes for all of you here who are watching. Those of you who are in my group, my Global Acceleration group, you're just phenomenal, and I love you so much. And I have nothing but mad love and respect for you. Wherever you are on your journey, know that you are exactly where you need to be, and I'm here to help you. The others in this group, we're here to help you. Just by our collective efforts towards a common goal and intention of unity consciousness, we're here to help. We're you. We're part of your soul family. And if you want a better exercise in connection and feeling connected again, make sure you come back for the Global Acceleration of Ascension Summit, February 5th through 7th, 2021, a 3-day event, over 30 presenters, presenting on all things spiritual, awakening, all things ascension, from information that benefits the newbie who is just tracking their course of spiritual awakening, and for those who are, well-heeled, spiritual high initiates, you could say. There's something for everyone in this amazing summit, and I'm really looking forward to it and being in this place of supporting you even further in 2021, because that's my job, and I accept it gratefully and graciously, and I love what I do. That should be apparent when I work with you guys. I really am blessed to do the work that I do, and I'm blessed to get to work with such amazing people, and I couldn't do what I do without you. So much love and peace to you. Bye-bye.